Thank you so much for your company this morning, and we welcome back to the cafe for this morning's Parenting Coffee Group discussion on forgiveness, Dr. Adeela Afiz and parenting blogger Tui Fleming. Morning to you both.
Hello. Good morning.
Good subject today, isn't it? Good juicy one. Let's start with you, Dr. Adeela. What's the importance of teaching our children why and how to forgive?
Forgiveness is important. We want to teach them empathy, resilience, and to be able to move on. And also, I think forgiveness is quite an adult concept, right? Like young children, they function in 10-second increments. Even if something goes wrong, 10 seconds later, they can move on and play with you again. So if you have young children starting to do things like hold a grudge, show you the silent treatment, you might want to look at what the adults around them are modelling.
Yeah, that's interesting. Tui, what do you think?
Oh, look, I totally agree with that. You talked about empathy, and I think the next level beyond empathy is compassion, isn't it? You know, empathy is about understanding, add the level of care for compassion, and that does result in resilience. The other thing that's amazing about forgiveness is that when you forgive someone, both the person forgiving and the person being forgiven, their heart rate instantly drops and their blood pressure drops. So it's actually, you know, it happens in both people. So it's a really nice process, I think, from a relationship perspective as well.
That's interesting. So, Adeela, when can we start the teachings?
Really young. Again, I always think it's about environment and what we're modelling. So, you know, like I said, children won't understand what forgiving means as a word, but they will see that someone might do something to hurt you and it's okay. They will then apologise and you can move on, and they see that and then they know it's okay to have an argument, a disagreement, even hurt each other unintentionally and still move on and have a loving relationship.
That's it, isn't it? It's the moving on, because you know it's not going to last forever. You'll get over this, and then there'll be you get. That's a lot of adults could learn that, actually.
Yes.
A lot.
Kids do forgive so quickly, don't they? We could learn from them.
We really could. So what sort of things then, Tui, should we be saying and getting our children to do when they start those scraps with their brothers or sisters?
Yeah, well, you know,
they do.
Totally they do. I mean, I've got a 6 and a 7-year-old, and they absolutely do. But there's something that my mum actually taught me when we were young, which is to use feeling words. So instead of the blame and shame, you know, you did this and da-da-da-da,
it's not my
I
fault.
feel, when you do this, it makes me feel da-da-da-da-da, and so it helps the person who you're talking to, siblings in this case, to actually go, oh, my actions have a consequence, and it helps that sibling to see the other one as, you know, not just someone to play rough and tumble or whatever with, but actually it's a person who has feelings.
Yeah, we've always tried to teach that consequences for actions is quite important, isn't it? What about with their peers then, Adeela, if they start an argument with them?
I think the same thing. How can we make your child look at what they did, how it made the other person feel, and if the roles were reversed, how would they feel? And so then if that had happened to you, how could that person make up for it or make you feel better? And they might say, I'd like it if they said sorry or wrote me a card or picked me a little flower, and they can then go and do that to their friend or peer.
So what if they don't want to forgive?
That's okay. It's okay if they don't want to forgive initially, but again, if we have that conversation around what forgiveness is, and you know, forgiveness isn't about condoning actions or bullying or an unsafe situation. So we're saying, let's give this person a second chance, or let's move on from this. But it's also okay if they don't want to go back into spending all their time with that same person. If it's their sibling, they don't have a choice, I'm sorry. But you know, we're talking about, we are starting to see a lot of bullying and a lot of things going on in the school environment. They can choose if they don't want to be around that person anymore. But forgiveness is about not harbouring resentment within themselves.
And it's about growth, isn't it? You know, it's not, you know, that's happened and I'm moving away from that person forever. It's about recognising it as an opportunity for growth.
So is the forgiveness more about how they feel themselves or how the other person is feeling?
Both. I think it's about them recognising, like you said, what they do has an action in another person, and also then in themselves realising it's okay to feel what they feel, but how would they like to be treated if the tables were turned as well.
And and when you are the forgiver as the child, I think, you know, it's taking a mindful reflection to say, so how do you feel now that you've actually forgiven that person? What does that feel like? And actually having them reflect on, it actually feels really good to forgive and to let go. Yeah.
Exactly. So what about if you putting stipulations in there, like if you make your bed, I'm going to forgive you, or if you get me that coffee, or that, no, that kid's not going to be any kill. If you get me that raro,
Making coffee for me now.
oh, excellent work. If you get me that raro, I'm going to forgive you. What about that?
I mean, I don't agree with that at all. I think, you know, the traditional method of reprimanding was, or rather of teaching a lesson, was to reprimand. And I think these days we're just seeing this real kind of wave of change, which is much more a compassionate approach. And I think, you know, to say, if you go and make your bed, then I'll forgive you. It's not even a related thing. And I think, you know, we need to make sure that the things we're talking about in terms of the contributions and chores and activities in the home that they have to do are one thing, and activity that you may need to be forgiving in the household is another thing. They need to be related. Yeah.
And also, quite often children do try to try it on, don't they? Like, oh yeah, if you say sorry to them for yelling at them, I'll forgive you if you give me that chocolate. It's like, no, honey, it doesn't work that way. Well, what if the other person won't accept the apology?
Tough, right? Especially when they're a child and they don't understand. I think we've got to allow them, just like if it was them in that situation, hey, you might need a few days and then you would feel better and then you can give this another go. So let's give little Jenny or little Jessie a few days and then we can try again. And it's important to allow, you know, for love not to be conditional though. So also from your previous question, we want people to have relationships and children to know that they can have relationships where they're not forced into doing anything, but there is choice and the chance to mend bridges.
Definitely.
So what else can we be doing right now for our children to sort of help them understand the whole concept of forgiveness?
Well, I think, you know, all of the things that we've talked about today, but also showing them that you are a human too. You know, yes, I might be mummy and I shouldn't make mistakes, but I do and I will continue to. So for me at home, it's about saying, hey, look, I shouldn't have done that. I'm really sorry, I made a mistake. Will you forgive me? So it's actually modelling that behaviour and showing them that, you know, we all make mistakes and we're all going to have opportunities to be forgiven and therefore to grow. That's the other thing, is explaining to them that actually it's about growing. It's really about growth.
Yeah, and moving on. Adeela?
Yeah, and when you do apologise and you say, I'll make sure, or I'll try my best not to do that again, that you actually try your best as the parent not to do that again, so that they can see that you're making a real effort and the promise you've made to them is valid and their feelings are just as important as yours.
Because it can be a difficult thing even as an adult to say sorry to somebody, can't it?
Yeah, we see it all the time, and I think actually this has been such an interesting topic because I think what we learn as kids and what we see modelled as children in our homes and how our parents and adults went about with this forgiveness and saying sorry and moving on is what shapes how we become adults and how we deal with it in, you know, in life.
Have you got any final words of advice, Tui?
I think forgive yourself as well. You know, you can say, I'm sorry to your kids or whoever, please forgive me. But actually, you know, I think there's that real part about, you know, I am enough just as I am and I'm doing the best I can in this moment and it's okay, you know, to forgive yourself. I think that's a really key lesson.
Yeah, that is really important. Adeela?
Yeah, forgiveness is more about you rather than them. So you can say, you know, I've done my best and I've said sorry and I'm going to forgive the situation and move on. And how they respond is up to them, and that's the choice we want everyone to have.
Exactly. So you don't harbour the guilt and the resentment and everything and the anger.
Letting that go from the situation.
Good chat today, ladies. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And if you have any burning questions for our parenting panel, do message us on our Facebook page. Now here's Daryl, who